Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to Weldall Manufacturing. My name is Dave Ball. Started Weldall in the early 70s, incorporated in 74. When I first started, I had less square footage than that weldment, like 400 square feet. That's about over 1,000. We've continuously grown. Currently, we have 220,000 square feet. We employ 240 people. That employment has doubled since last fall. This bay here and the joining bay to this, we just moved in a couple months ago. In this bay here, we have two 100-ton cranes. We also have a 20, and we have a number of gantry cranes. But we're going from little stuff to bigger stuff. We're medium to heavy-sized weldments. With the 200-ton cranes, we can handle up to 400,000-pound weldment. That doesn't blend too well for trucking. That's the reason why we're going with the rail. Be much more efficient, cheaper, and so forth. So I'd just like to explain one thing. I'll let Scott talk about the T grant. But the tax dollars that these employees paid in this year is $1.63 million. $1.63 million. That's like just over a half a year. We also use some agencies, so those dollars are not included in there. So there's a lot of dollars that is turned back into the state, the local, the federal, and so forth. We're also looking for another 40, 50 employees. Those would be fitters, welders, press brake operators, machine operators. With that, I'd like to turn it over to our great governor, Scott Walker, the job creator.
Thank you. Well, thanks, Dave, not only for that introduction, but thank you for your leadership. You, Dave, your entire team here. We appreciate all the staff here, and we're going to take a tour and see some of the updates. I've been here before, but it's nice to see the growth. I know for not only myself, but all the lawmakers and county executives here, we're thrilled to be in any place in Wisconsin when we're talking about more jobs. And to think about that, a year ago at the end of August, 113 jobs. Today, to be up to 240, and you're looking to hire even more. What about another 40 or 50? So they're looking to hire even more in the future, and this is about a great partnership. For us, the job creators, Dave, are people like you. We're just trying to make sure government either gets out of the way where they've been a burden, or in this case is a partner. Exactly, be a partner in helping together. And we know it's part of the reason why we all put an emphasis on transportation in this last budget, because we know that transportation is a part of economic development. And this is a prime example of that. Because of the growing success, and I just came back on the way in by Waukesha Electric. I've been there too, seen the growth. I know you partner with them. But to see the growth in this area, particularly for the city of Waukesha, because with the TIF here, with all the growth, it's kind of a challenge. So with this T grant, Transportation Economic Assistance, a T grant, what we're able to do is have the state of Wisconsin provide $650,000. That goes to the city of Waukesha, which matches the other half of that, and that's able to put two rail lines in here, two spurs, that help relieve the pressure on the roads and streets and highways, and at the same time provide a direct link for the products that Dave and the team here at Weldall are providing, not only for Waukesha and southeastern Wisconsin, but for the entire state and really around the world. And we couldn't be more thrilled. This is a great example of a partnership. To make this work, to make this be effective, we've got to be smart about how we do that. And in this case, using intermodal, using a rail spur, this helps us take the products and expansion, the investment you've had of about $13 million for this expansion, to be able to make sure the product gets in and out and makes you effective and competitive on a global basis. This is good news overall, because obviously we need more job creators like this. In the first 6 months of this year in Wisconsin, we've seen a steady growth of jobs. It's been tough the last couple months with all the uncertainty in Washington with the debt ceiling, even with some of the uncertainty here in Wisconsin with the recall elections and everything else. But those are all done. The uncertainty in Washington is done, at least when it comes to the debt ceiling. In Wisconsin, we're getting back to work. We're focused back in the capital again, and that helps us put us on the right track, because more than anything, Dave, I know the job creators want certainty. They want to know that if you're going to go out on a limb, if you're going to make a $13 million investment to grow your company, to hire more employees, that the government's not going to get in your way along the way and make it more difficult. And so the best thing we can provide is certainty and a partnership. That's what we're announcing today. That's a good sign for the future. I think that's part of the reason why this year we went from being, a year ago, ranked 41 on the rankings of the best states to do business in. We went up 17 spots this year. The fastest increase of any state in the country, the fastest increase in the history of the CO survey out there, and that's because businesses are noting here and across the country that we're open for business, and that means we know what to do to help business, and sometimes it means getting out of the way, and like today, sometimes it means being a great partner. The last thing I just want to say is, Dave, not only to you, but to all the employees here, one of the reasons why Wisconsin is a great place to do business, one of the reasons why we have been even in the past with some of our barriers, is we got a great workforce. We have well-trained, well-prepared, hard-working employees in this state. And Weldall is a prime example of that. We need to add more well-trained, high-skilled employees in the state of Wisconsin, because when we do, we're going to show the rest of the world that they don't need to send business anywhere else. They just need to send it to Wisconsin, because we got the talent, we got the skill, we got the hard work, and we got employers who are willing to step up and make the investment, and we've got a state government that understands what it means to say we're open for business, and we're going to continue to do that again in the future. So for everybody else watching this on the news, know that Weldall's looking for another 40 to 50 employees. They've already been hiring. They've more than doubled up in the past year. We need more companies like that here in the state of Wisconsin, and that's why I'm proud to be here today. Dave, thanks very much.
Thank you, Scott.
Sure. Are we doing that right now, or right now? Okay. Am I doing it there? Yeah, you can. Okay. I'm going to step up. I'm going to say hi to the crew before they go back up, and then I'll just come right up there. Good job. Thank you. See you. See you. All right, Scott. Thank you. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate your job. My pleasure.
So it's like their deep sewer project. Yeah.
Glad to be out. Then we can celebrate more jobs. Yeah, well, I'm not going, hey, wait a minute, you're testing me. Pleasure. That's right, I'm like going, hey, wait a minute, I went through that. Thank you. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Good job.
Keep working hard. Appreciate it. So we hear that all the time about the work that you do.
Governor, it was very hard to hear anything you said.
Okay.
It was impossible.
Sorry about that.
A month ago, when the June jobs report came out, your administration took quite a bit of credit for it, saying Wisconsin is open for business. Today, the jobs report comes out, and those gains have totally been erased. You take credit for that.
Yeah, I pointed out in the first 6 months, the policies we put in place helped create certainty in the state all the way through June. We saw in July and even into August, I would imagine the August numbers will come out next month to reflect a similar pattern. Incredible uncertainty both at the federal level in terms of the debt ceiling debate and all the tension that was involved with that, the negative impact that had on the economy, combined with really July and August is when you saw the height of all the recall commercials. And I think for a lot of employers we talked to, that added a high level of uncertainty, not knowing what was going to come next. Our hope is now that both of those things are resolved, they're done, we can move forward, and that's why it's all the more important to redouble our efforts when it comes to jobs.
Governor, there's a lot of talk about Congressman Ryan running for president. Weekly Standard saying you're supporting that. What are you telling Paul Ryan?
Well, I said what I point out is I think Paul is one of the most courageous leaders in America today, and having grown up just down the way from him in the small town of Delavan, I know the kind of caliber of person is. I know he's one of those leaders who worries more about the next generation than he does about the next election, and I think we need more leaders like that in Washington. Whether or not he decides to ultimately get in, I think as a decision he's going to make with his family. I still think he's probably inclined not to at this point, but we won't know until the coming days.
Are you encouraging him personally?
I would think he'd be a great candidate.
No, are you personally encouraging him?
I've talked to him multiple times, just not recently, but I've talked to him in the past saying he'd be a good candidate.
Do you think that that he's a stronger candidate than any of the other people who are currently in the race?
Well, I think he's an exceptional candidate. I think there are other good candidates in the race right now, so it's not my encouragement's not a reflection of necessarily where other candidates are, just the fact that I know him well. Obviously, I've known him for some time and think he's got the kind of caliber, expertise, and background that would make him a great candidate.
It looks like Tommy Thompson's going to run for Senate. Give us your take on that.
I think Tommy Thompson would be a great U.S. Senator. He's got passion. You look at what he did, particularly when he came in as governor. He was one of the leaders in the country on welfare reform. He was one of the leaders on school reform. He was very effective at turning the state's economy around a generation ago. We certainly need people who understand jobs and reform in Washington.
The jobs, unemployment, as she talked about, ticked up. How do you keep the positive numbers flowing?
Well, the key for us, again, is more examples like we have at Weldall and others. We need more employers, even in these uncertain times, to step up and take that risk and put more people to work. We're going to show in state government we're doing all that we can to be a good partner with the private sector, because the jobs are going to come increasingly from the private sector, and we need to make sure that we're doing everything in our power to help the private sector create more jobs in the state of Wisconsin. But again, the biggest thing they need is certainty. We heard it early on in administration. That's why we took aggressive action to try and show through tax reform, regulatory reform, litigation reform, that in the end this was a good place to do business in. Obviously the last couple months, as much as anything in Washington and on the stock market, have been difficult for many businesses. That's something we're going to have to be even more aggressive to counter.
Governor, we have a legislature now that the recalls are out of the way, but it's certainly tightened in the Senate.
Yeah.
You sound like you're urging more bipartisan action.
Well, I think in the end what we're looking for is to get back to what we started out with. Remember in January going into February, when we focused on jobs, we had broad bipartisan support. Nearly every bill in our special session on jobs had all Republicans, one independent, and many Democrats voting for it. I want to get back to it. I think when you talk about jobs, jobs are not about Republican jobs or Democrat jobs. They're just about Wisconsin jobs. And to that extent, if we work on things like venture capital, we look on a modified mining bill that could deal with balancing both environmental concerns and economic concerns. I think there are any number of other nuts and bolts issues where just the other day I signed a resolution in Kenosha County where Senator Wirtz was there days before his own recall election standing with me because of that issue. It was not one that was Republican or Democrat. It was just a pro-jobs agenda. We can do more of that.
Last one. Can you name a couple of employers who were concerned about the debt or the recalls and held off on creating jobs or cut jobs?
In terms of specific employers, no, we heard all the time people on the particularly when it comes to the debt the debt ceiling, individuals were concerned about what it would mean for interest rates and whether or not they could go out and get lending and have an impact on that. But I don't have a long list. I've just heard that repeatedly at functions, both on individual tours and heard it on business associations, trade associations, others that went out there. But what we've heard overwhelmingly, we heard across the country, is uncertainty in general is a big concern.
Is the state making any offer to Rude Lighting? We had a story this morning saying that they're ready to go with the 200,000 square foot expansion now that they've been bought by the North Carolina firm, but they said, you know, North Carolina's offering us a nice package. We want to see what the state or local government has to offer.
I think they just started talking about that. I don't know if there's anything particular on the table right now, but we can follow up and look for that.
Governor, a town like Waukesha, adding jobs here, but just down the street, Westwood Aluminum Castings, a longtime company, laying off 90 people. You chalk that up to the uncertainty as well? Or?
I think so. I think in the end, and again, I give great credit to Dave Ball and his team here. You know, even in a tough economic environment, they're taking a risk. They see the value with their employees. They see the value of adding more talent. But it's a tough time, and for a lot of folks, they look at the yo-yo the last couple of years of where if somebody takes a risk like that, suddenly the market tightens up again. People are concerned about what impact that would mean towards unemployment, what impact it would have on individual employees. We need, the more we can get sustained growth will come when we get greater certainty in not only the Wisconsin economy, but in the national and global economy.
When do you think that'll happen?
Well, I'm hoping, again, The debt ceiling was a big concern over really July into the first week of August. That more than anything had an impact. We saw it in the markets. We saw then the rattling effect after that when the federal government, at least one of the bond rating agencies, downgraded the bond rating. That has an impact not just on Wall Street, because in the end, Wall Street's important. What's more important is Main Street and every other street in our state. But if it has an impact on financing and interest rates, that's the big thing. If individuals, employers like Weldall here are looking at putting money out, they want to know that they can handle the interest rates and the costs aren't going to go up along the way.
Is it debt ceiling, or is it the inability of Republicans and Democrats to work together to solve problems?
Well, the uncertainty, the biggest part on the downgrade was the inability to deal with the debt. And the initial concern was really twofold. It was if they didn't deal with the debt ceiling, there was the potential of a default. That in itself was a concern. On top of that, with or without hitting the debt ceiling, I think there's an ongoing concern about the debt itself. So the next wave, talking about when you get certainty back, ultimately will be when people look at Washington and see if the panel, the bipartisan panel put together, is able to chip away at that debt. Because that's really what the bond rating agencies look at more than anything. Can the Congress and the President find a way to work together on that, no matter what the outcome is? They're not choosing whether it's revenue or cuts. They're just saying the debt's too large, and that has an impact on the country's ability to stay in financial situation that's possible.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. We're going which way?